We've got to shape the future, of course, working with Opportunity Miami as our future focus arm to figure out where are we going and how are we intentional in getting there.
Rod Miller, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So a new time, a new moment for Miami-Dade Beacon Council with a new strategic plan. And so really want to dive into that. And to start with, you lay out 5 pillars that are the foundation of this plan. Walk us through each of the 5 pillars, what they are.
We're really excited about the strategic plan because we work with a diverse group of stakeholders, including business leadership, our board, political leaders, to really understand what the market needed. And these 5 pillars really jumped out to us. One was growing the economy. How do we ensure that we continue to grow the economy in a way that provides high-value jobs? 2 is championing Miami. We've got a great business story to tell, but I don't know that we've told it as well as we could. So we've got to figure out how do we lead a national campaign to make sure that companies understand the value that Miami has to offer. 3, we've got to invest in people and cultivate talent. Talent is one of those things that it just drives everything. And so we've got to attract talent, we've got to retain talent, and we've got to develop our own talent. We've got to shape the future, of course, working with Opportunity Miami as our future focused arm to figure out where are we going and how are we intentional in getting there. And then ultimately, we've got to deliver and track. We got to deliver value to our stakeholders, and what gets measured gets done. So we're going to try and measure our organization and measure the market so that we can continuously improve.
Let's talk about this moment that we find ourselves in right now, where it's this moment for Beacon Council to really shift in big ways. What is the context, what is the landscape we find ourselves in right now, and why is this a good moment for Beacon Council to evolve and grow?
We're really at a fascinating place. On the global stage that we see global conflict, instability, and shifting market dynamics are really reshaping the flow of goods and services and productivity across the globe. So it's important that we remember as we do this work that we're not an isolated community. We're connected to this global economy, and that our decisions are going to shape the rest of the world, and the rest of the world is shaping us. We're fortunate that we've been able to navigate this with a lot of success. Another big piece, though, of the changing global dynamic is that Miami is a very different market post-COVID versus what it was before. And so we've got a lot of new entrants and new participants. And for Beacon, I think that means that we've got to figure out how do we engage differently and more broadly and more deeply. So that's how do we take advantage of our great relationship with Miami-Dade County and make that even stronger? How do we start to leverage relationships with local municipalities and get them engaged? And how do we work with business leadership? And then ultimately, we know that we've got that these deepened partnerships and this moment of new leadership really presents a unique opportunity for us to rethink our work. And so we're trying to take advantage of that context and recognize this inflection point.
And now as we spin it forward, what do you see are those key opportunities that this moment brings that we can really leverage?
Opportunity number 1, I think we've got to address the question of climate action. It's both an existential question as well as an economic opportunity. It's a generational opportunity, not only for our market, but also for us to help influence the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And so we've got to take that opportunity by the horns, and of course we're doing a lot of that through our work with Opportunity Miami. When I was going through the interview process, what got me excited about this job was Opportunity Miami. This question of climate action and my Opportunity Miami's focus on it is absolutely essential. I've met with companies that have said, Miami, from a market perspective, looks great. My question is, will Miami be around in 30 years? Will Miami be around in 40 years? And part of what I can tell them is that Opportunity Miami has brought together key leaders on the question of climate action and is really elevating solutions at work. And so I think that's one of the big wins and coups for our market. I also talk to them often about how large our Department of Sustainability is in the county. And so I think there's a level of focus on climate action and climate sustainability, largely due to the work of Opportunity Miami, that this community will benefit from for many years to come. The other thing that I think is really critical at this moment is that the business leadership, that the public, that they demand more of us as an organization. I think the organization has a 40-year history. I know the organization has a 40-year history of delivering value, but I think the way that we deliver value now has to be different. It's not just about jobs and investment. Yeah, 5,700 jobs are great, but so what? What does that really mean to the tío or the abuelito or the business on the corner? How do we ensure that the value that we provide is differently? And then last but not least, I think as we think about where we are and the opportunity before us at this moment, I think being people-centered has to be at the core of it. People think that economies are all about, companies and about dollars and cents, but at the end of the day, it's about people being able to afford a quality of life and being able to have some dignity and self-respect. And I think as we look at our work at Beacon, we've got to keep people at the center of it. If it's not impacting people, we probably shouldn't be doing it.
All right, let's talk about next steps. So now this plan is rolled out. Talk about sort of how the Beacon Council works with the community, works with stakeholders, and actually begins delivering on this plan.
Well, one of the things that's vital to this is the restructuring of the work. We are restructuring our teams, our processes, working with our board, really rethinking how do we actually deliver optimum value, be more efficient and more effective. What happens, and this happens to every organization, but at 37 years of being an organization, we've got a lot of things that maybe don't make us as nimble as we should be. And so we want to figure out how do we actually build our entire body of work, our structure, our management processes around delivering the value and delivering efficiently and effectively. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I've mentioned it once before, but I'll mention it again, this idea of building on research and on data. Opinions are cool, but at the end of the day, there are things that have worked in other markets that probably could work here. There's data that we don't have, so we're making decisions sometimes without the best data. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about Beacon, but I'm talking about our community. So we want to be that resource to provide that. So we're thinking about how do we do that differently. And then I think ultimately this idea of engagement. There's no one organization, and Beacon included, that can actually deliver in a vat this idea of economic value. We've got to work with our partners in the public sector. So how do we deepen those relationships with Miami-Dade County, municipalities, and and folks at the state, And then how do we also think about how we work with the private sector? I often say it, I'm a good salesperson, this is what I'm paid to do. But everything that I say has a discount attached to it because I'm a paid spokesperson. So how is it that we actually get the business leadership to go out there and tell the story on our behalf? And while we tout Beacon successes, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our success is really the success of this ecosystem. We work very closely within a collection of non-profit partners, with universities, with career source and workforce development organizations. So we've got to figure out how do we continue to build the relationships so that we can deliver value for companies and deliver value for our residents.
As we think about economic development, Beacon Council, 37 years old, and what was done here in Miami is done in lots of cities across the country, right? Setting up these economic development organizations, public-private partnerships. This is an environment that's gotten really crowded. The corner that Beacon Council was on, the economic development corner, now there's a lot of other people on it too. Boot camps, accelerators, incubators, mentorship programs, all these organizations focused on helping new entrepreneurs start companies, helping existing entrepreneurs grow and scale their ventures. How does the modern economic development organization differentiate itself and offer value and deliver impact in this increasingly crowded world?
It's a crowded world and it's an interesting world. A lot of that is good and some of that can be challenging. I think, the great part of it about it is when I started in this field 20 years ago, there was a very simple understanding of economic development. Generally speaking, it was, we were pejoratively called kind of the smokestack chasers. And so it was all about attraction of companies. And while that continues to be an important part of the work, it's not enough. Right? And so we have to be much broader and much more sophisticated about how we're growing the economy. Not just that we're growing the economy, but how we're actually growing it. What are the elements of the economy that works? The modern economic development organization recognizes that there's not one entity that can do it, and it has to really be an ecosystem approach. And so an organization like Beacon has to be people-centered, future-focused, but also really serve as kind of an organizer, if you will, of the ecosystem and an ecosystem builder. So you need, the boot camps and the accelerators. You need the workforce development agencies to play an active role, and you need all of it. And so the modern economic development organization doesn't see that as competition, but invites it in, and figures out how does it leverage its pipeline and its relationship to make these other elements stronger. Ultimately, if it works for the companies and if it works for the residents, it's good. And it'll work better for the companies and the residents if organizations like Beacon don't run away from those realities, but figure out how are those realities essential to increasing the competitiveness of our market.
With Opportunity Miami, which is this month will become 2 years old, which is an effort at Beacon to really pull out of the here and now and to think about the future, to take a little piece of Beacon Council and to think down the road, right? When the child today will be ready to enter the workforce, what is that world we hope for them to find? What do you hope the Miami of 2040 looks like?
I think the Miami of 2040 is a fascinating place. It's a place where Miami is really at the forefront of developing a diverse talent pool. We're excited about the recent announcement of the scholarship program at Miami-Dade College, where anyone who graduates with the 2.0 can access, an associate's degree if they have the need.
Future ready.
Future ready,
program.
the future
It's
ready.
awesome.
It's really exciting. So I think we're going to continue to lead in building the workforce of the future. The Miami of 2040 is a place where we won't only be the top place for startups, but we will be one of the top places for startups being able to scale up. And that's going to be vitally important that we build the capital networks and things needed for these companies not just to get started here, but to have a long future here. And then ultimately, we'll be leading the climate change revolution. I think we've got an exciting array of companies that are innovating in this space, and increasingly our universities are creating new IP and rolling out opportunities. So I think we're going to be the place where everyone says, if you want to go to a place that has not run away from the climate challenge, but is actually leading, it'll be Miami. And our tech hub designation by the feds exemplify that we're on the right path.
Rod Miller,
Thank you
very
sir.
much.
All right, this is great.